And good morning, Ontario PSWs and friends. My name is Miranda Romanowicz. I'm the CEO of the Ontario PSW Association and host of PSW Podcast, where we come live to you guys every single Friday here on Facebook and, of course, live streamed on TikTok to talk about the issues pertaining to personal support workers. The last few weeks have been a little heavy. But today we're going to be talking about something great. And as usual, I am joined by my right side of my brain, my Chief Operating Officer, DaSilva of OPSWA as well. And today we're going to be talking about marketing yourself as a new PSW grad in the province of Ontario, myths and diffs and everything else that we can talk about basically in relation to the PSW. So Ian, let's get it started.
All right. So I think the real thing that we've noticed at the association, well, we have noticed at the association, is that we've definitely changed. There's a big change in the culture of hiring and in the patterns of hiring that we're seeing in Ontario. So back 4 years ago, PSWs were in shortage. They were in demand. I'm talking COVID, of course, during the dark times for us. Jobs were easy to get. Everyone wanted to be, everyone needed those jobs. Everyone needed PSWs. Since that time, and thanks to some of the work we've been doing here at the campaign, we've increased the number of PSWs entering to the workforce. So now we're dealing with a situation where we have a lot right now in some areas, slightly more PSWs than we need, and then compared to certain areas. So we're in transition a little bit here. So today's webinar is going to talk about making people aware of that.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. I think, doing these TikTok lives that I do 3 times a week, maybe sometimes 4 times a week, and, reading what a lot of people are putting, into the comments here on Facebook and the conversations that we're having on the daily as a team with a lot of our members and PSW students in general, is there still is that big misconception that upon graduation from any program in the province of Ontario, that you can automatically get hired into a long-term care facility or into a hospital. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, I'm going to be the bad person yet again and mention and say, not going to happen. Not going to happen. And full time in long term care, which blows my mind because there never has been full time in long term care unless you've been working in that long term care facility for like a long time and you build up seniority. That is the only way to get full time lines.
It's true, and it's not going to change in the near future. At least that's what, despite our best efforts, it looks like this is going to be remaining. And also, we want to talk about where the surplus is. We see a lot of the people looking for full time work. There seems to be an expectation. I've graduated from a college in the GTA. I'm ready to start working full time in the hospital or long term care. I have an expectation that I will achieve that role within 3 months of graduation. We're kind of at a loss of where that expectation is coming from. We're not sure if this was something that the schools were indicating to their graduates, that you're going to be guaranteed long-term care hours. If your school did do that, you might want to have a word with them, because
Also, too, if the schools are doing this, yeah, thanks. And I'm saying that very sarcastically because we as the association have to deal with the fallout. Like I always say, when students are in school, they are the business of the school. As soon as they graduate, they become, not our problem, but our responsibility at the association. So, not sharing the fact also, I mean, another myth is that they can only work in home care, retirement, long-term care, or community care. That's it. And that's a lie. PSWs can work literally anywhere. So PSWs right now, we have them in the school boards, we have them in group homes, we have them, working in by themselves. They're entrepreneurial PSWs. We have them, of course, in long-term care, assisted living, retirement homes, et cetera, et cetera. But and we also don't just take care of the geriatrics.
no.
That's another myth that these students are saying, oh, I can work with a baby. Oh, I can work with a young kid. Absolutely, you can.
It's true. We've done a lot of focus, and our focus a lot of it in the last 3 years has been on focusing on long-term care because there was that huge shortage. It's not that situation anymore in Ontario. So we noticed that actually when we were trying to encourage long-term care to recruit, many of them were saying that we were fully staffed. This was 2, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So, and I really think this is an impact that the expectations in the GTA, so talking Greater Toronto area, especially neighborhoods, Mississauga, Brampton, we
Even my area, Ian,
we're getting
Cambridge,
inundated. We're
Kitchener.
getting London. We're getting
Yeah.
inundated. New graduates saying, "I've graduated. I expect to be employed," and they're baffled because there's been the market for PSWs has changed so quickly.
Yeah. And it really has. I mean, because I remember, so I'm a 2006 graduate, right? When I graduated as a PSW, I was hired before I even had my certificate.
Yeah.
So I was hired right out of the gate. The employers were really recruiting us big time before we even graduated. And so I went right into long-term care because I lived in a smaller community. I lived in Paris, Ontario, and my dad was talking to the administrator, and the administrator found out I was a PSW graduate, and I was hired on the spot. That's not how it works anymore. And we've been giving a lot of really good advice to the new graduates. Like we always say, you need to stand out amongst the crowd. There's a crowd, a very big crowd of PSW graduates from all different sectors of education. So you're looking at community college, career college, and board of educations. Now, employers are looking for those PSWs that have gone above and beyond. And what we mean by that is that you keep upgrading your education. You keep doing micro credentialing. You find something that you want to specialize in. So if you want to work with people with mental health issues, go back. You don't have to go back to school, but you can take courses online that can give you that certificate that goes into your portfolio. You want to do palliative care, same thing. I mean, you have to make yourself different. Now, one of the other things too that we find is we have really good statistics when it comes to PSW graduates who join the association upon graduation. And they can become a member of the association. They get the $2 million professional liability insurance. They get the 50,000 abuse coverage. They get the ID badge that IDs them as a personal support worker. And the employers love that because these PSWs are now saying, I'm taking ownership for my own professional career, and I'm accountable by choice to my professional association because I have signed a code of conduct and a code of ethics. It just makes them stand out. And I'm not saying this as a sales pitch or anything. I'm just speaking the truth.
And it's not just PSWs. If you're graduating and going into from any sort of collegiate or a university program and you're becoming a professional anything, you need to join your professional association. Now, that's where it's also changing in Ontario is the expectation that I can go to any college and as long as I have my diploma, I'm going to get hired anywhere. No, as Miranda just said, you need to start investing a little bit more in yourself and taking that career seriously. And many of you are, which is wonderful. But that's why you need to join a professional association for exactly those reasons.
Yeah.
You're showing that you take it seriously and that you are a responsible member of the community.
Well, didn't you do that, Ian? You did HR.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. And you guys were expected to join the HR association.
Absolutely, yes. Upon graduation, you needed to conduct a test, and that's why you have the CHRP designation right across Canada right now, which is becoming a standard as well. It's not law, but it's becoming a standard. Same thing for electricians, barbers, hairstylists, anyone else.
Plumbers.
You
Yeah.
need to get that, and this is which is the uphill battle is convincing um, or those new graduates that this is something you should be doing and you should be taking this seriously for your own protection and for an investment in your future self as well, which is important.
Exactly. And many times when these graduates, when they leave that, I mean, I remember when I was at Mohawk and my Mohawk sisters and myself, we didn't have any guys in the class at that time. Like a lot of us still stay connected, but we were a real core team while we were in school. Upon leaving and graduating, suddenly we were on our own. Like suddenly we had to figure out things for ourselves, and there was no association at that time.
No,
And so we truly were on our own. And, I remember I got a job. I only worked one shift at this place, and I'm not going to name it, but it was a retirement home. And of course, being a Mohawk grad, we were taught very strict things about what we can and cannot do as PSWs. Like they were adamant about stuff. And I went into this retirement home, and they wanted me to do all sorts of things that were way outside my scope of practice. The care of the individuals in that home were atrocious. I went home after that shift and I cried. And I called the Ministry of Health. I did. And I said, what can we do? And the Ministry of Health said, absolutely nothing. We have no jurisdiction over these retirement homes. So I didn't get any answers to my questions. I didn't get any support whatsoever. And so that's why it's another really important factor is becoming a part of your peer association. This association was created for PSWs by PSWs. And so, it's important that you stay connected, because many of us will also go and work out in the community, which means that we're not with a colleague every single day either. So you have to take care of your well-being. I mean, we always do well in packs, right? Humans do well in packs as opposed to being on our own. Not to sound like I'm talking about wolves or anything, but it's just the truth of it, right? Nobody understands a PSW better than a PSW.
And PSWs are also happening, and we see this all the time. You're competing against negativity in your offices against other PSWs that basically have become has entrenched the idea that we're not worth it. They've been abused for so long that some of them are just like, just stop. So it's important to join your community. We need to build a new backbone to healthcare in Ontario, and every one of PSWs that join us makes that stronger. It makes yourself stronger. It makes our province stronger. So it's
Absolutely.
really important.
And I see, a lot of the graduates that are coming out, I mean, I'm super proud of them. I mean, a lot of them really are in this for the right reasons and really want to make an impact and make a difference. And, so to the new graduates, I'm speaking directly to you right now. When you graduate, do not expect to get a job in the hospital. Do not expect to get a job in long-term care. What you should be doing is looking for any job you can get in healthcare in order to build your portfolio. Just because you get hired with mom and dad's home care company doesn't mean that that doesn't look good, because you need to gain experience and you need to gain opportunities. And then yesterday I was live on TikTok, as you know, Ian, and one of the PSW students was asking me, like, what do I do to get into the hospital? Like, do I just put a resume in? Guys, that area it's who you know. A lot of it's who you know. They don't just take outsiders in. So I recommended volunteering. Do some volunteer hours at the hospital. You want to get into a long-term care home, volunteer at the long-term care home. Why not? You can take 2, 3, 10 hours out of your week in order to go and do that, just to build your portfolio. When an employer is looking at your resume, and I want to make this very clear, they don't give two rats kahuna if you worked at Burger King for 4 years, okay? They don't care. Take that off your resume. That's not important. What they want to see is anything related to the job that you are applying for, okay? So if you have Burger King on there, or you worked in the Emirates as a nurse, they're not going to care about that. They need to see what you've done in Ontario healthcare. So volunteering at a long-term care facility, or, Meals on Wheels, or stuff like that, that is going to look so good on your resume. And that's going to help you get to where you want to be a lot faster.
It's very well said. Absolutely correct.
Yeah.
I can't add to that.
It just popped in my head. I was like, to build your portfolio, I mean, there's a lot of different things you need to do. Like I said, the volunteering, but you also have to look at micro credentialing.
Now we also have a population of PSO. So if I can take us back a little second, the other thing you have to be mindful of is PSWs that are currently looking for work. We have a confluence right now of graduating classes from the CESPA programs, private community colleges, the NACC programs, and our community colleges.
Yeah.
All coming out right now in the last 4 months, graduating together. So for those of you who are in the NACC programs, the college programs, George Brown, for example, you have to compete, and likewise against all the other people that are graduating from all the other colleges. So the competition in the next few months is going to be very tight, especially in the Toronto area. They are opening long-term care homes as well, but many of these long-term care homes have staffing plans in place, and they also have networks with agencies that are looking to pre-staff them. So we are talking structural shortage in Ontario, but that structural shortage is across the whole province. So
Yeah.
say that we're talking Polar Bear Provincial Park, Atikokan. Like, these are where the shortages are. It's one of those things where we have that messaging issue. It's downtown Toronto. You get the message from Premier Ford. We're going to have a shortage of PSWs. Everyone thinks it's in Toronto. It's not Toronto at all. Toronto's fine.
No,
Toronto's
yeah.
swimming in players of all kinds. It's those small towns that are structurally teething issue. So please bear that in mind when you hear those numbers about shortages versus where you live in relation to those shortage numbers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's really important that you say that, because when we talk to our partners in Thunder Bay or Timmins or Sudbury, that's or Sault Ste. Marie, that's where we're seeing the mass shortages is primarily in the north. It's not so much, I mean, and it's not so much, I mean, I live in the KW region and I got PSWs at my craw every day going, I need to find work, I need work, I need work, because all the long-term care homes here are fully staffed apparently.
Yeah.
So it's a conundrum, but at the association we're here to help everybody, not just new grads, but also maybe PSWs who want to branch out, that want to do something different, and they're searching for employment. As a member of the association, you get access to our leadership team for interview strategies, resume building. We can help you rewrite your resume. We also can help source out employment. We do have employer members of the association that only want OPSWA PSWs as employees. So there's a lot of opportunity, but don't come to us expecting us to, that it's going to be a long-term care home, because the most of our employers are agency that are looking for PSWs to go work in long-term care, to go work in hospital, but through an agency setting.
And if I can jump in with regards to agency settings, if you're working through an agency and you have experience to get into a long-term care home, there's a love-hate relationship with agencies in Ontario right now. We're just taking that aside. But for this discussion, if you have an opportunity to work with an agency or an app that one of our partners, take it. Use that shift. It's experience to do it. And you can use that experience in the future. We just want you to set your expectations accordingly and plan accordingly. One thing I want to jump onto is that we please understand we do identify there is a significant population of PSWs that have graduated and they're in a catch 22. And I know this catch 22, I'm just going to jump into it really quickly. So it is very easy to say for us, yes, you can go volunteer for a few months, but we've been dealing with people who are, I have no income. I need a job immediately because I can't even afford to join the association. But like, oh my gosh, that's true. If you're in this situation, okay, we're not going to make you join the association. Please look into some of those opportunities with agencies. Please look into some of those opportunities, even just doing home care short-term contracts. You need to, as Miranda was saying, you need to get that experience to really get your feel for the position. So I just wanted to make sure we are mindful of that, okay? But
Yeah, absolutely. I also want to point out that when you're sending out resumes, if you have an opportunity to actually go in person and hand your resume into this company in person, I would highly recommend it, because nowadays everything is so like, look what we're doing, Zoom and TikTok, and you can just email a resume. I mean, back in Ian's and my days, not to age us, but everything was done in person. You'd have to go and handing your resume in person, which was extremely anxiety stricken, but it got the job done. So if you have that opportunity to go in person, I would highly recommend that, because that just shows initiative. It shows professionalism. And when I'm talking to, I don't care if you're in your scrubs or in your public wear that you wear all the time, your civvy clothes, you got to look professional. So don't show up looking like you just rolled out of bed in your pajamas to hand in your resume. Like I know that's like a new thing. My daughter wears Spider-Man pajama pants when we go out for Shetsay. But it's, if you're doing a job interview or you want to get hired by a company or make first impressions are everything, especially in healthcare, right? So you got to make sure that you look the part as
embrace
well.
embrace DIP, embrace the dips. You're going
Yeah.
to someone else's home. You must act accordingly and have dress like you're going to show that person some respect. And
Yeah, and it's not a thing about piercings or tattoos. I could give two rats caboodie about that stuff, okay, guys? It's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how you behave, how you conduct yourself, and how you look. If you show up and, like I said, you're wearing pajama pants and a hoodie and your hair's in a messy bun,
scrunchy and
and
you got a coffee in your hand and you're
yeah,
stumbling into the interview, you might as well just keep stumbling right back out because
yeah,
you're not going to be on our team. That's how I
yeah,
look
but if
as a human
if
resource.
you show up and you actually have copies of your portfolio of all the different trainings that you've done, you have it in a nice file folder, you're looking professional, you're acting professional, use your manners. Use your manners. Please and thank you goes a really long way in this world, okay? And you use your manners and you go in and you conduct the interview and you leave and you remember to shake their hand Always shake their hand, because that shows that you are taking not only yourself seriously, but you are showing the employer the respect that mainly they deserve.
And yeah,
So, yeah.
and again, it's one of those things where you have to sell yourself to the person hiring you, regardless of where you're going. It's part of life. We all have to do it all the time. I just remember being in recruiting, and you would see the people that cared about the job versus those who didn't. They'd show up with their children. Like,
Yeah,
for interviews,
yeah.
I'm like, why are your children here? Oh, I just was bored today and I thought I'd bring them along. I'm like, well, you're not getting the job because I can't. That's not professional. You
No.
really, and you are going to be judged. So again, and I said this, one of the things I always was my pet peeve was the people coming into interviews, just like Miranda said, in your yoga pants, running shoes, hair in a scrunchie, and a coffee and a hoodie. That's great for doing something, but that's not how you dress for a job interview. Okay, it is
You know
not.
what I think? I think there's been a lot of misconceptions too, because I've been going back to like the dark time, COVID. I mean, PSWs were being handpicked left and right for positions. It was just like, they're just popping out. You're getting the job no matter what you looked like. They didn't care.
Matter.
But now there's a lot of competition because of the fact that the government has really pushed for PSWs. And so we've created this environment where we're kind of like 1990s environment again, where for the good jobs,
It
you're gonna
is.
have to fight for it. That's literally what
Right.
it
It
is.
is. This seems very familiar to the late 90s, early 2000s, when it was not easy to get jobs as DSW and PSW work. And when I
No.
started, we'd have 150 applicants per job. I think I had 1,100 per job at one time.
Yeah.
Please understand, when you're dealing with these especially in the GTA, and we get this a lot. I've sent in 500 applications across every job. That's fine. We're now looking per job at about 1,100 probably to 1,000 in some cases for jobs. So I cannot stress this enough. The market is tight. The economy is tight. It's getting tighter. Prepare accordingly and take yourself seriously. You got to set
And
your.
also too, if you can't show up to the job, you can call them and you can inquire as to whether or not they received your resume, and make sure that you are not abrupt, and that you remain polite on the phone, and that you don't call them 20,000 times a day. Because I will promise you, you call them too often, they will not hire you either.
Calling
So
it.
it's a very fine balance.
Don't harass them. I think
Yeah,
it's the
don't
right-
harass them, right? Don't think it's okay to call every day at 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. and 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. And no, because yeah, they're going to know who you are, but not in the way that you want them to know who you
Yeah,
are.
exactly. Yeah. Uh,
They're going to be like, yeah, I'm not hiring this person. They're too much of a liability.
it happens.
It happens. And
Happens.
I mean, we're talking about, but we're just telling them what not to do, really,
But
at the
not
end
to
of the
do.
day.
These
Yeah.
are bad examples. But yeah, these are real examples that I have encountered
Me too.
in my professional life, being an HR person, and you need to be very self-aware. What's easiest for you may not be what's best for you in some cases in the
Yeah.
job, right? So
Yeah.
just be mindful of
So So I'm sorry if your schools have informed you that it would be very easy to nab up a PSW position. Some of you probably have, some of you probably haven't, as we're well aware, because I don't think the schools are tuned in into what's actually happening in the field. And that's why, becoming a member or not, stay tuned into our Facebook, into our TikTok, really stay active in our community, because that's how you're going to find out information that you need to know.
that. Absolutely, for sure.
Yeah. So I think we've had a great conversation here today. Are there any questions that popped up by chance?
Hold on. Let me just have a look. You're asking, I don't have the question panel up. My apologies.
Yeah, I didn't this time either. We normally do, everyone. So we apologize for that.
Hold on. I'll see. Just a sec. Any questions?
Yeah, here's this. Any tips for applying for PSW jobs? I'm not even getting interviews, but I'm in Hamilton.
Oh, yes. And thank you, Nicole. Yes. Okay, a couple of things. These are excellent points. And thank you, Nicole. Nicole, our director of operations, has brought up 2 points. There's another competition group out there, which is new Canadians trying to get letters, labor market impact assessment, positive labor market impact assessments. Okay. Employers, back to the whole surplus of PSWs, employers have their pick of PSWs that are from Canada that are born here. So this is where you're going to have a bit of an issue. If you're asking employers if they can have a labor market impact assessment survey at this time in the GTA, you're not going to have a lot of success because labor market impact assessments can only work if there's a permanent shortage. Because there isn't a shortage, very few employers in the GTA are going to do the paperwork for a labor market impact assessment and guarantee jobs for someone when they don't have to. So, if from pure market, for those looking, do not run into the employer saying that you need an LMIA. That is a way of saying you are not getting a job. You will not be hired right now in the market in the GTA. So stop that avenue. I don't want to do bearer bad news, but for many people looking for labor market impact assessments at this stage of where we are, we can't do a lot to help you. We're really sorry, but it's beyond our power. The other issue is, and thank you again, Nicole, is please be mindful of AI. The goal is to get in to meet with the recruiter. So be mindful that they do use AI to make sure that the resumes are done, that are clients. So you want to make sure you model your resumes to each other. That's an old story. We all know that. Okay, that was the 2 lines. Thank you, Nicole. Sorry. We're good.
No, someone asked like any tips for getting jobs on TikTok, and like we just said, you just got to send out your resume. You got to show up to the employer if you can. You got to make sure you look professional when you show up to the job. You got to make sure that your manners are right at the very top, and that you are showing the best of yourself when you go and see an employer. And yes, there are a lot of PSWs in the Hamilton region because you're dealing with Mohawk College is in Hamilton, and they pump out a ton of PSWs every single year. So there's a very, very high competition in Hamilton. If you drive, I'd recommend looking at Brantford, looking at Paris, looking at Woodstock, looking at, oh, I don't know, like looking around Hamilton, Burlington, like getting outside of the Hamilton region, because you're going to find a lot more opportunities are actually going to be outside of your comfort zone. Yeah. Yeah.
And just one other thing, one regarding, please make sure that if your school offers you a placement, you take it. And
Yes.
we've gotten a lot recently of people coming to us saying, I need help getting a placement. And then upon looking into it further, it turns out that they were offered a placement, but that placement was rejected because it wasn't good enough for the student. You're setting yourself up to fail fast if that's your attitude going into this career. If that's your attitude, I'm going to be honest, if that's your attitude going into this, that you're going to reject your placement, this isn't the career for you guys. Sorry.
Is not the career. No.
This is not a career you might
No,
want.
and it kind of ticks me off because when I was doing my program at Mohawk College, I lived in Paris, Ontario, which is about a good half an hour out from Mohawk. And when they placed me in my long-term care placement, I was actually placed in Dundas, Ontario, which is not close at all to where I live. I'd have to get up at 4:30 in the morning, and you know what I mean, and hitch a ride to get to, and I have to go to a
Yeah.
Timmy's in the middle of nowhere to hitch a ride to get out to St. Joe's Villa in Dundas. Great long-term care home, do not get me wrong, and it was a great experience. But you just take what you get. You
Take what
can't
you
turn around. Yeah, you can't just turn around and say, "Oh, you want me to take 5 subway stops to get to this long-term care home?" No, I want the long-term care home down the street from me. You do not set the rules or the bar when it
do
comes to
not.
placements.
You do not set the
End of
bar.
story.
Not a chance. This is
No.
for every career. Your placement goes. When I was a kid, I lived in Whitby. My placements were in downtown Toronto. Did I get to complain? No, I got on the GO train and went to downtown Toronto at my own expense every day.
Yeah.
So, and there's none of this, well, we're going to pay you your GO train. No, you did it out of your own expense. And there wasn't even I'm baffled by this. So right now, we need to tell people your attitude is terrible if you're approaching that replacement from that area. And we can't help you. So
PSWs are backing us up on TikTok, by the way. They're saying I had 2 hours to drive to get to my placement.
we
A lot
all
of them
have to
saying,
work.
yeah,
I'm baffled by this attitude where I don't want to, and I literally had someone, and I'm not gonna say the name, but I did not want to go the extra subway stop. I wanted something in walking distance. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I need you to get me something within, he was like 50 meters of where he lived. And he absolutely adamant that that was going to happen. And I was like, well, you were offered that, take it. That's not fair. I don't want to do that. I'm like, new profession for
well,
that person.
you know what? Like we always
Right.
say, Ian, in all of our conversations, is there's no room for ego or righteousness in the PSW field.
No,
We are the angels for the most vulnerable in the province of Ontario and across Canada.
that's
And
where we
we
get our
don't, and and if you're already going to have a problem with having to go and drive to your placement because you don't like where it's located, or you have to spend your own money in order to get to it, then you may honestly want to rethink joining the PSW profession.
I agree. Yeah.
Because I tell you point blank, when you are working in retirement, long-term care, home care, assisted living, etc., you don't have a choice. You cannot turn around to your employer and say, I'm only working from 9 to 3 because I have to go get my kids.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
it's
good
not
luck.
a reality in
When I
society.
was working in long-term care, it was before I only had my son when I
Yeah.
started my career, and then I had my daughter about 2 years after I started as a PSW. I was a single mom and I was working 2 to 10. Figure it out. Because if you want the shifts, you got to figure it out. They
Yeah.
unfortunately, home care is a lot more kind of flexible on that.
If you're an
But
entrepreneur, you can do different things too.
well, an entrepreneur as well. But if you want facility or hospital or places that are extremely strict on shifts and etc., you're not going to get that kind of lenience that you're looking for.
They don't have a duty
So
to accommodate is the term. They have no
they
right.
don't.
They don't have a duty to accommodate your childcare plans. That is not a concern of employers. If you think that is a concern of employer, you are very sadly mistaken. Okay.
Exactly.
I'm
So
sorry.
I think we've either destroyed some
I'm
PSW
sorry.
grads today.
Yes.
Or
Listen,
no, or we've said it like it is. I mean,
we
we
have.
get a lot of PSW grads that are constantly asking us the same questions. I'm glad that we have, talked about this today, and I hope that it has helped some of the PSW grads or even some of the PSWs out there, to really kind of talk about the crux of the issues and the realities of working as a PSW in Ontario. Ian, as usual, you and I could talk for days on all things PSW. Yes. So thank you very much for joining me. And remember everyone on TikTok, I'm coming on to you live for a Q&A for 30 minutes after I'm done here. So we're going to pause the live here on TikTok. We're going to say goodbye to our friends and PSWs on Facebook. We'll be back next Friday live at 11 a.m. for yet again another PSW podcast. Thanks very much for joining us. And with that, we're going to say OPSWA out.